So I've hooked Amazon's voice assistant up to Google Sheets, and I'm using it to get analytics about myself. And this is something that should be in the Amazon store pretty soon. But I'm just going to show you how it would work if you were a new user. So if you were a new user, when you first invoke the command, after you hook it up, you would say, Alexa, better tracker.
We have created a Google Sheet in your Google Drive titled Better Tracker.
So Better Tracker is a Google Sheet that was created in your Google Drive, and the application only has permission to this sheet. It doesn't have permissions for any of your other sheets. So that's just a thing I want to say. And it does then modify it. It will be inserting what activity you're doing, when did you start doing it, when did you end doing it, and how many hours did you do it. And then there's summary, and then there's these mappings, and we'll talk about that. So the voice assistant doesn't take unstructured data. It wants to take like a number so that it doesn't get confused. And also, if you were trying to track what you're doing throughout the day, so suppose you're lifting weights. You could say lifting, you could say lift, you could say going to the gym, right? And so those things would impact your data quality, and when you begin to produce graphs, things like that, it would kind of become a mess. So it's important that you kind of narrow down the categories that you're collecting for. And also, it's just not supported by the Amazon Voice Assistant API for me to be collecting unstructured data. So the workaround that I have is that the user can just enter the activities that they do, and they just enter them in this mappings. This spreadsheet is titled mappings. Let me see if I can bring it up so you can see. If I can bring it up enough. Yeah, it's titled mappings. So in the mappings sheet is where mappings are. So first, when we invoke it, yeah, we just made the sheet, and now I guess I would want to start tracking time. So then I would say, Alexa, tell Better Tracker track 1.
Work tracking now.
Okay, so work is tracking now. And if we go to logs, you know, there's nothing in there. That's because work is currently tracking, but when we finish tracking it, then we'll enter. So we can finish tracking either by saying to stop or by transitioning to another thing. So I can say, Alexa, tell Better Tracker track 2.
Work logged in sheet. Play tracking now.
So work is logged in the sheet, and let's look at it. So work is logged in the sheet, and we get this start and end dates, and this is actually a calculation based on these things. And the reasoning being that I want users to be able to modify if they said, oh, I kind of messed up data entry, maybe I should just modify end. Well, then there would actually be two columns that you would need to modify in that case. If hours was a constant that came over to you, so if we do a calculation with hours instead of having it be a constant, then the user doesn't get those mismatches. Although there are some mismatches on daylight savings times and stuff, and that's just a consequence of Google Sheets not really being that time zone aware. So yeah, so this is a way that we can collect data that is, I think, reasonably accurate about what you're doing and when you're doing it. And so we just transitioned from work to play. Now, if we want to log play, then we can transition back to work, or we can just stop. So I can say, Alexa, tell Better Tracker track stop. Stop, quit.
Bye.
Oh, no. See, it didn't understand the input. Okay, because I started saying track, and then I said stop. So I'm going to try again. Alexa, tell Better Tracker stop.
Play tracked in Google Sheet.
So yeah, these voice interfaces can be a little finicky. I mean, they can't read your mind, right? And so yeah, so we have work is tracked, play is tracked, and also if you just say Better Tracker, then it will tell you. So the first invocation, if you don't have a sheet created, then it will create the sheet. Now, if you don't have any activities going on, you say, Alexa, Better Tracker.
You have no timers running.
So I have no timers running, but then I say, Alexa, tell Better Tracker track 1.
Work tracking now.
And then I say, Alexa, Better Tracker. Alexa, Better Tracker.
Activity work for 0.00 hours.
Okay, so I'm doing activity work for 0.00 hours because I just did it. I blame this old Echo Dot. This is like 2 versions behind right now, so it's a little bit of an antique. Maybe that's why it doesn't pick me up. I don't know. But yeah, so we're logging data, and also notice that like this time and this time are equal. So if you only did transitions between activities, then you would end up like partitioning your time. Now, if the data is quality, is up to you, and if you're trying to produce a high quality data set about your life, I guess if that's what you want to do. But yeah, you could definitely partition your days using this voice interface, and we've covered the mappings, and there's the summary. It's a pivot table, but I've actually been tracking with sort of a command line TypeScript built type tool, and so I've got some data from before I had a voice interface when I'm a command line user of this tracking type stuff. So yeah, here's my data, and the pivot table populates to look like this, and so it's sorting descending with the year, month, day. And so this is basically, you just look at the top and it's going to tell you what day you're at currently, and then you go down and it's going to tell you what you have been doing. And so I do it like, I'll try to make sure I don't stay in bed too long. So on the 10th, I forgot to log waking up, but I usually have a morning routine. My morning routine usually consists of about 5 hours of work, and I try to wake up, get out of bed within like half hour. And then I have like these breaks with the works. It's the Pomodoro method, so I have this whole thing set up in the command line, right? But I'm just trying to show you what this pivot table would look like if it was populated. So yeah, but the pivot table doesn't give you the finest detail. I mean, you can do stuff. You could probably filter stuff. So if I wanted to filter, like wake, I guess I would clear, and then I would just wake up. Right? I mean, I can get data and see the range didn't extend down, that's so you can get, I'm saying you have the granular data in the sheet, but actually we have a dashboard in Python. And that dashboard in Python actually reads from, well, it reads from the Google Sheet, and it will update like every half hour. So yeah. So this is another representation of the data, and I would say that this is like a calendar view of your data. So this calendar view of your data, you can look at it like a calendar, and you're kind of saying, oh, what was I doing? So when do I wake up? Ooh, I was up by 3:33, but I laid in bed for an hour. So I use this to just understand what I'm doing. I try to set habits, like I want to like have like 5 1-hour work blocks in the morning. So I have like that, right? Yeah, so that's kind of my main use of it, is I like to check what time I wake up. I like to check if I'm like keeping my kind of like work routine solid. I'm somebody that doesn't really do that well without a routine, so I try to establish routine just so I can stay kind of on the ball. So yeah, so that's how I've been using this, and I had this constructed before the hackathon. But I extended it. So it was literally just this graph on this page, but I added more graphs and some interactivity and stuff like that. So I don't know if I've shown you, you can click on something, it'll do that. You can multiple click, right? You can multiple click. There's hover information. So it's saying I was doing open source for 0.81 hours from 5:09 to 5:57 on April 9th. And it's like that for every block of data. It provides hover information. And so yeah, an alternative to doing that kind of selection is you can also just actually select things. You can just select school. And so that works as well. And you can filter by hour. So if I wanted to only look at certain hours, I try to work from 4 to maybe 11. And let's bring everything back in. So you can see that like there were some days where I was kind of like not having much of a routine regarding that, and there were some days where I was pretty consistent. So that's like the type of analysis that I would do on this data set. And there's also date ranges. I actually like seeing more dates, just personally, because it gives me a sense of like kind of context. And oh, and see this, sometimes you have to like deselect the slider. See how I took the slider? It was still grabbing it. Okay. There we go. So yeah, so that's kind of, I like having like most of the data, but I think once you get to like maybe a year, because I'm only at a month, then things would be kind of hard to focus on. I think that a month, like, it's a good looking view, I think. Um, and then we have these rolling average lookbacks. So the rolling average is just, it's computing. Okay, we'll do 7. So the 7-day rolling average look back, I don't think that's a word, but I wrote it, is going to calculate some summary statistics over a 7-day period looking backwards. So like this hover information right now is telling me that I was doing school an average of 5.4 hours a day, totaling 37.82 hours over the period from March 26th to April 1st, which should be a 7-day period. So that's what it's telling me. And yeah, so you can use like a 7-day rolling average look back if you want to understand your weekly, output of something that you're trying to do in your life. And yeah, so that's kind of that. So like I said, the inspiration for this graph is like a calendar. I thought of a calendar. I said I wish I had a calendar that like showed me everything that I did in the past instead of stuff I have to do in the future. And this is actually like a pie chart. So I wanted to make a pie chart, and I was going to have like a filter by date range and then the filter by date range. But what it would be like, the pie chart would actually just be like one of these bars, right? So the pie chart was just going to be like one bar, but like in a circular shape. And I probably would have done it, but then I couldn't find a pie chart in Altair. So Altair is the data visualization library that I'm using for this, and I couldn't find a pie chart in their documentation, and I already had a bar chart. So I did a bar chart, and I think it was not a bad idea because now I have so many pie charts. Like if you think about it, each one of these is a pie chart with a 7-day grouping period. So I think that is a good thing to, I don't know. I think it's much better than having a single pie chart. And it was an interesting calculation as well, because to do the 7-day, just like if you think about the format of the dates, how it's all date times, you're going to need to sort of somehow collapse it into dates and then do the rolling averages in a way. The solution was to take the data from a long format, and this might not make sense to you if you don't know like the terms or whatever, but I thought it was interesting, is you take the data from a long format and you put it into a wide format, which is kind of opposite of what I am used to doing. So you take it from long, you put it into wide, and you give it an index which is equal to the day. I think it was the pandas pivot table function was what I used to sort of get it into a place where like school, walk, food, these were all columns, and there was an index row which was the date range, and then there's actually a method for doing rolling averages on things with date indexes. So then you can just use that rolling average, and then you can calculate these values. So I had 2 separate data frames for the mean and the total calculations, and then I combined them, and then I had to turn them back into a non-wide data format because the bar chart doesn't, like the graphing library doesn't understand like wide data. I don't know what it would do. So, but yeah, so I had to go from long to wide and make 2 wide data frames and go back to long again. It was just an operation I hadn't done before, and I've like spent some time like manipulating data, so I thought it was like cool. I kind of learned something, and I also learned a little bit about the difference between like R and Python, and like why in some cases you might want an index, I guess, because I've always been bothered by the pandas indexes, and I guess you want them for time series analysis. I'm not sure. This is like the first thing I've done like this. So, but it was interesting. Yeah, yeah. And so you can filter by hour, and like I don't know if I told you, but like this will truncate. There's like this is going to truncate. So 7.5. If I was at 6.5, if I work from 6.5 to 8.5, then it would only count the 7.5 to 8.5. So the truncation does work as it should in these sort of rolling averages. And we have a calendar view, and we can select, we can filter date ranges, And yeah, and so that's sort of the project. And this does get populated from the Google Sheet, and you can write to the Google Sheet using the Amazon Voice Assistant. A feature that I think I need to ship for this is so that you enter the URL. So you should actually be able, and I'm going to implement it, and I just haven't yet. It shouldn't be hard because it's already basically what I'm doing. Is you would just copy this, you'd Control C, you'd copy this, you'd copy the URL of your Google Sheet, and then you would paste it into my Streamlit application in some sort of text input box, and then you would be able to see these analytics for the stuff that you collect. And the interesting thing about tracking data in a Google Sheet is that you're not dealing with, say my servers. It's not I have an application for tracking time and you're trying to make requests to it. It's, well, you're trying to make requests to Google's server, and they have, API limits that they allow for you. And so, for example, I could use both my JavaScript time tracking library, and I could use the voice activated time tracking library, because the Google Sheets has an API that is public, and it's your sheet. So that's sort of the spiel about why it's kind of cool to track things to a Google Sheet, because you could come up with a different way of tracking things to a Google Sheet. And so if you didn't like the Amazon Voice Assistant, you could use the Google Voice Assistant, and it would probably be a little easier because the users might be authenticated already through their phone, or I'm not sure how that works because I built the one for the Amazon Voice Assistant. So yeah, so that's my project, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun using it, and it should be on the Amazon store eventually. If you check the link in the description, maybe eventually it'll just be there. Yeah, so thank you.